Okay, so good afternoon, Form 4 boys and girls. So today I would like to finish the chapter 9 by talking about the chapter 9.2 and 9.3 together, which are the four operations of rational functions. So if you still remember, last two lessons, in the first lesson we talked about the operation of the rational functions are actually the same as what you did in Form 2, which is the operations of algebraic fractions. But why do we have to call rational functions in DSE? It is because we want to highlight the concept of function in DSE. So we talk about these are the rational functions, but actually you have to understand is that no matter the rational functions now or what you learn in Form 2 about algebraic fractions, the most important definition or what is the meaning of rational functions are just what you can see in the book. It means that you have a fraction, and in the numerator and the denominator, these two are both polynomials. That means that you will not do with some square root x or some x to the power fraction number, no, but just only polynomials over another polynomial. So we call the rational functions. So because we want to highlight more about functions, so you have to understand is that you are expected to learn one more thing about this kind of fractions. We will call the domain. So if you still remember what's mean domain, roughly speaking, we can say what you can put into the expression to have defined the value. What does it mean? That means that, for example, you can see example 5a, you can see f bracket x equals to x plus 1 over x plus 2. So we write this fraction in function form. But no matter we write f or another thing, it's just okay, just a natural. But the most important thing is that actually you can put any x into the algebraic fraction because these are just polynomials. But the most important thing is that some value you cannot put because you will make the fraction with denominator 0. So if you still remember that we cannot make a number with the denominator 0 because the value is not defined, or we simply say undefined, or you can see from the character we say the math error. That means that what we need to do is that you have to avoid denominator becomes 0. This is what you have to do. So I would like to highlight that this point is that you cannot make the denominator 0. So when we say the domain, you just ignore or just accept those numbers to make denominator 0. Then there is a domain. For example, you can see a, x is negative 2 will make denominator 0. So you should say the domain is every real number x except the negative 2. So it's just very easy because what you need to do is just like you did domain before. You just need to ignore those would make denominator 0, those x. Okay, so it's just very easy. So it's just very easy example. And then now when we go to say to simplify the rational function, or we say algebraic fraction, so you just do as usual. But what difference between what you learn in Form 2 and the DSE is that in DSE we will give you more polynomials, or you have to factorize the polynomial before you simplify everything. That means that in Form 4, what the difference is that you have to do factorization first. Okay, in Form 2 you may not need to do factorization, but in Form 4 you always need to factorize. And do remember is that you should not just only factorize the numerator, but also for the denominator. So you can see in example 6, what you need to do is that no matter what you do, you should factorize first. So you can see that, for example, the part A, you can see first of all we have to factorize for no matter here and here. So we have to do the factorization. Okay, so after you have factorized, you got the factor, then you cross out the factor just like you simplified the fractions before. Okay, so no big problem, but do remember, once again, remind you once again, factorize, factorize, factorize. And then besides of some level 1 or level 2 questions, even this one level 2, you just do the factorization. So sometimes you may have to use some identities. For example, if you can see the part B, you can see that for part B there will be a cubic polynomial. So you have to remember what you learned in Form 3, the sum of cube or the difference of cube to make this and this, which is the formula you learned before. So just recall. Okay. And then also besides of this one, then you can also see that now when we do the operations, once again, do remember to do the factorization first, okay? And then you just cross out like what you did in Form 2. But do remember is that because this time the questions may be more complicated than what you learned in Form 2. So please always remind yourself to aware the most important point is this one, which is the points that sometimes it would make the factor like a minus b with negative b minus a. That means that the term which are very similar, okay, which are very similar, but just differ from the negative side. So you should expect that these two, for example, sorry, I should make the pen again. For example, this one, a minus b and negative b minus a, actually they should have the same factor, but just differ from the negative side. So you should remember to cancel them, okay, after you have done the factorization. So we can take a look on some example. For example, you can see that in example 8, just like before, you have to what? You have to simplify each algebraic fraction first, or the rational function first, and then you simplify as usual. Do remember is that, for example, a, you can see the bracket square. So you have to make sure that the square should be put inside everything, inside the terms. For example, you can see bracket 2x and then over x minus 1 all square. So 2x should be squared, become 4 times x squared. For the numerator, bracket x minus 1 square should not be expanded because you have to keep factorization always. So you can see why we will just write x minus 1 square, but not expansion. That means that you should not write this one as expansion x squared minus 2x plus 1, because if you just expand it, it is not very useful for us to simplify. So do remember is that don't make expansion, but just keep all the things factorized in order you can simplify among the terms. And also you can see that after the AB, you can also see the C, but you can see the C, the denominator, you have 4x squared plus 4x minus 3. So once again, do remember is that this one is not factorized yet, so you have to remember to factorize this one to get this. So you have to remember is that the steps of factorization is very, very important when we do the rational functions or the algebraic fraction. So do remember to do the factorization. So we go to the next example. So you can see in the next example also, the 9a, b, and c are just followed, but this time we just use division. So do remember to interchange the second fraction after you have changed it to multiplication. But one thing I would like to remind you is the 9b. So you can see in the question 9b, this one is just what I remind you here is that if you see 5 minus x, do remember is that this one can becomes negative bracket x minus 5. So this bracket x minus 5 can be cancelled with the x minus 5 here. So do remember is that sometimes you may mislook some of the terms to become negative of x something, x minus or x plus something. So do remember to remind yourself you have to change it, if you need to do so. So this is what I want to remind you when you do the algebraic fraction. So besides of multiplication or division, even some long question like the example 10, it just follows. So now, the last thing I would like to remind you is that how should we do the addition subtraction? So once just like before, you may see some questions, before again. For example, you can see the example 11. This example, for example, the part A, is just like what you did in the last homework, also in form 2, is that when you have two fractions add or subtract together, you have to make the common denominator before you do the simplification. And do remember is that after you have put them together, so you have to, this one, you should not do factorization because they are added together. You cannot just factorize, but you should first of all to expand. So you should first of all expand and simplify. So after you have expand and simplifying, then you should remember to do the factorization afterwards, just like before. That means that what you need to do is that when they are adding or subtract together, you put it together and then you simplify the numerator first. And after simplify and expand, you need to factorize again to make the things, just like before. But the most important thing I would like to remind you is that you can go back to the book to see. You can see that for the steps given from the book, we say that you should not make the denominator so big. So here is a reminder I like to say is that don't make the denominator so big, but just only multiply. No, but you have to take the LCM instead. What does it mean? That means that when you do any questions like this one, add the fractions or subtract the fraction together, don't just think that they are with different fractions, so we just multiply. No, just now you can see the part B. You can see that we will never write it this way. That means that oh, you can see 2x squared plus x, this one is 2x plus 1. So can we just like before to make this one is 2x squared and then plus x, and then here you write as 2x plus 1? No, never. No, never. Because if you do it this way, you make the denominator very, very big. It is not convenient for us to cancel. So what we need to do is that you should, first of all, factorize each of the fraction. For example, you have 2x squared plus x, you make x bracket 2x plus 1. Then you make the denominator just enough for you to make it together by taking the LCM. That means that x 2x plus 1. So here you just need to multiply x to the second term. For example, here you make x times 2x plus 1, then this one you just multiply the x, then you can put it together as 1 plus 2x on the top. Okay, so this is what I want to remind you when you do addition or subtraction. That means that don't think that if the two fractions are add or subtract together, you make the multiplying denominator. No, but you take the LCM only. It means that when you do some other questions, just like for example, you can see the C. Now you can see the first fraction, you have x minus 1, x plus 3. The second one, you have x squared minus 9. So you have to make the x squared minus 9 becomes x plus 3, x minus 3. Then for these two things, for example, you can see the first one, you have x minus 1, x plus 3. The second one, you will have x plus 3, x minus 3. We should not take so many terms because x plus 3 appear in both fractions. So for LCM, you just only need to take one. Okay, you just only need to take one in the fraction. So remember is that only take once only. Don't take so more. If you take so more here, then the terms will be very, very big and very, very complicated. So just remember to do this. And also, because your final common denominator will have only three factors, x minus 1, x plus 3, x minus 3. That means that originally for each fraction in the question, you just need to fill up only one factor. Okay, no matter in the numerator and denominator. For example, here for the first one, x minus 1, x plus 3, you make x minus 3 more. So you just need to multiply 2 by x minus 3 because you just have x minus 3 more here. And then for the second one, x, you just only need to multiply x plus 3, x minus 1. Then you simplify it. And do remember is that after you have simplified, so remember to do factorization afterwards. That means that after you have expanded and simplified, then you can see something, okay, here. Then you have to factorize and then to see whether your factorization can make you factor that you can simplify further. For example, after you have made x squared plus x minus 6, you have x plus 3, x minus 2, then you can see these 2x plus 3 can be further cancelled to make your final answer just like in this way. Okay, now so this is the reminder for you to remember when you do the rational functions in some advanced question like this one. In Form 2, you will never do this way because in Form 2, we just ask you very, very simple algebraic fractions or rational functions with very, very less terms in denominator. But in Form 4, we will give you more terms of denominator, so you should first remember to make the common denominator by taking LCM, not just only multiply, to make it not so big. And then, after you have simplified it, then you should do more factorization and then to see the factor you factorize can be cancelled with the original denominator. So this is what you need to learn more than Form 2. Okay, so I will not go for all the example because you can see all the example are just straightforward. So you can easily see that even A, B, and C in the example 12. So you are doing it the same way is that first of all you do the factorization. Okay, you do the factorization. And you can see actually the part A, x squared minus 3 and negative 3 plus x squared are just the same denominator. You don't need to multiply them. You just keep ones here and then you put 3 and minus x squared together. Okay, and then for part B, just like usual. So you can see that for part B, actually even you don't take the LCM for each fraction, you can simplify themselves first and then use the simplified fraction to do the operation. Okay, and then also the C. Okay, and then also example 13, so you can just read by yourself. So after the example 13 and 14, then you can see the last part of this session is that when all the operations are together. That means that if you have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division together, 4 operations together. So do remember is that if the operations are mixed, okay, so just remember what you learned in primary school always in everything is that 先乘除後加減. That means that always do the multiplication division among the term first. and then you do the addition subtraction afterwards, just like before. So there is no such difficult thing. But what you need to do is just you have to remember is that no matter how big is the example and how complicated are the terms, so just remember the most important thing. So I would like to summarize by writing here. So those examples I will not talk. So I just want to say the summary is that when we talk about the algebraic fraction, so just remember the summary is that, so do remember is that you have to do factorization. That means that you should first of all to remember to factorize the term before you do any simplification. Factorize first. And then if we say plus or subtraction, addition or subtraction, do remember is that you just need to take the LCM of denominator. Okay. And also you have to remember is that for the first thing when we talk about the rational functions or algebraic function, do remember some terms like a minus b and also negative bracket b minus a. That means that if you have one positive term, one negative term together, you can interchange the terms with positive and negative. But do remember to put the negative sign in front of it. So I think that these three are the most important thing that you should always keep in mind when you do any rational functions. So I wanted to say that this is the end of this chapter. This chapter is very, very short. What you need to learn is just you have to learn more examples that you learned in Form 2. But here we bring you that you have to factorize and then you have to cancel. So because you need to do the factorization of polynomials, there will be some topics related to what you learned in the first term, chapter 6, or more about polynomial, which I have also reminded you in the last clip. Okay, so on Wednesday, okay, there will be an online lesson to you. So the Wednesday online lesson, we may go through the classwork we gave you, okay, from this week or from the last week. That means that this chapter classwork, we'll go through all the classwork here. So here will be the last classwork for this chapter. Okay, so this time do the book supplementary exercise 9, the following 7 questions. For the question 16 to 21, these 6 questions are level 1 questions, not difficult at all. But what you need to do is just you have to do well about the 4 operations of rational functions. And for the question 48, it is a general application problem of rational functions. So try to see whether you understand what you have learned in these 3 clips and try to do these 7 questions. The due date I set on Monday, okay? But I think that, okay, if you cannot finish on Monday, you can hand to the subject teacher on Tuesday also. Because even you hand in Tuesday, I can give you the explanation on Wednesday, okay? So please try to do these 7 questions and wait for us to give you the answer on coming Wednesday in the online lesson. So thank you very much, boys and girls. Stay tuned and goodbye.